Hi, my name is Robert Bailey, and this is my Killing Floor 2 level, KF Arena. This is the latest iteration of it, um, and I'm going to be going through a medium-length game to make sure I have enough time to talk. But for the last few waves, I'll probably run out of things to say, but I'll still keep going because I just want to be able to show off the boss spawning to show that everything's in and working. And I have noticed, just in general play, not just on my level, and it wasn't in the editor, is that the bloats, the big waddly guys, their model's been a little bit weird, and I haven't figured out how exactly how or what's causing that. So I apologize if there's a couple glitchy models, because they're at a distance and then they get close like this. Yeah, so it might be something with draw distance. I'm not sure, and it wasn't happening in the editor, um, and so that'll be if I go back on like a more technical sweep of the level. I'll definitely be trying to figure out if that's that, or if, and it could just be with the amount of mess with in-game files recently, that it just needs to have a full reinstall. But that's not the focus of this. The focus of this is because they're still working, they're still gameplay environment, just their models being wonky. Um, The big change from previous levels is the lighting. Or previous iterations is the lighting. The lighting is no longer using point lights, nor is it using directional lights. It's using destructible lights. Well, I mean, it is using point lights, but the prominent focus is those point lights and these destructible ones, so that they can be shot at. And after a little bit of damage, they start flickering. Some of them are already flickering, and then a couple more shots, and they're fully gone. Excuse me. That's one of my favorite features of the game is the lighting system. I love the way it forces players to move, and so I wanted to make sure that was in my level and my portrayal of the game. Not every light is destructible, but most of them are. Um, these banners, these vending machines. Um, the one set of lights that consistently isn't destructible are these red emergency lights on the staircases and in the arena. And that's because not only are emergency lights inherently resilient in real life, um, they are also they also serve as way. So if the player somehow manages to destroy literally every other light in the game, they won't be destroying those. Um, so they'll still be able to see and interact and move through the map, and that was something I definitely wanted to emphasize. Not emphasize, but that was definitely something I wanted to have still be around is the fact that they can still move through, still navigate, even if they destroy everything. It'll just be a lot harder. And this is coming from a lot of playtests I had, specifically on Tuesday. I was able to grab people who hadn't played the game or even my level before, and was able to get them to play it. And I noticed they were almost always in the center of the map, going towards this jumbotron, which also has its own set of lights. But those aren't destructible, and I'll go over why in a minute. But they were always here because they didn't feel safe on other parts of the map because it was too dim, because there was only like 2 or 3 point lights on any one of those long walkways. Um, and they were really dim. They were having fun, but it was just like, why would I want to navigate and force my way through the? I'm actually going to drag this bloater out and see if it's these point lights. Um, but see, sorry, I'm trying to pay attention. No, it's not those. So yeah, I think the model's just wonky and my inner files are weird. I apologize for that. It does make hilarious physics though, like what just happened. Um, and other big zombies aren't being affected by it, so it's my files and I apologize. Um, so back to the level and the game flow that I wanted to go for. Um, the something the jumbotron was always the focal point they would go to because it was better lit. They had to use their flashlights less often. They started to use them in this environment, but they had the supporting light. And I asked a couple of them, and they were like, "Yeah, I mean, the lights at a distance are still fun. They're just it's an issue of it's really hard to see, and if I don't have to worry about managing my flashlight and managing these other things, I'm not going to want to." So they would come back to the jumbotron. And I like that because it creates a nice flow for the map. Players are start here, maybe get pushed away, flow back. It kind of pulses with the zombies. And so then I kind of moved some props around and set it up to more engage the center ice rink. Um, so its lighting will always be on. You can't break it. Um, the spawn inside of it still works, but it's less relevant because players are going to be around here more often, or at least that's the player groups I've played with. But this open area in the front is very different from the back. The back has all sorts of like crates and cover, and that's because this way there's a zombie spawn to the left, front, and then zombie pathing from the right. That's a lot of zombies coming down. It's so I can't demo it inherently because I'm only one player. But it's the amount of zombie scales with more. There's more than 27 on wave 3. There's something like 50 for 2 players, and then that just keeps scaling up. So if you're trying to fight 100 zombies through 3 exits, you're gonna have to have some worries. So this place allows a class like me, the Berserker. They can run up, they can navigate, they aren't gonna get hung up on things. They aren't going to worry about stuff. Shotgunners have tons of places for spread, but then elements like the Berserker's chainsaw or the nail gun, like I'm using now, are a little bit less useful because it's so open. So it encourages players to kind of dedicate themselves to protecting one of the paths, especially if they have guns that reverberate off the walls. Oh, cool. Use the vents. And the whereas the background, if I can just grab one zombie to show it off a little bit more. Okay, that's going to be a little bit... Actually, no. He's kind of what I want to. So if you get something like this range zombie, the Husk, and your range class, that isn't me right now, you can use some of this to cover and kite around the the big box, navigate around the cover, use it as a way to protect yourself, and still shoot out, take pot shots, but you still have to deal with a spawn there and zombies now coming from the rear. So it kind of creates 2 halves to the arena, where it's big enough to cause an issue to swap places, but there's interesting elements to both halves that players can move through. The next big thing is also these places are better lit. There were a couple complaints of like, yeah, the trade in the back, I've got no idea where I don't like going there because it's so dark. And so, well, it's kind of, if it was a different thematic map of something more oppressive, because right now it's just kind of inherently cartoony. It's a hockey arena that's spawning, it's full of zombies. That's goofy. But so if I was going for something more like spooky, I would want to have darker traders, never have the player feel safe. But I changed the vents so that now light will definitely permeate. I don't have the highest light settings to make sure that my recording isn't tanking, but but instead of just being lit by these 2 emergency lights, it's now lit from above and causes shadows on the floor. So it still is a little bit spookier, but nothing that's going to mess with players. Also, I want to blow up the fire extinguisher because I haven't shown those off. Those don't do anything. It's just fun. It's another way to add more particle effects to players' explosions. And what's fun about those vent lights is because if this was a versus match, those players could spawn in those vents and then take out those lights. So it adds an extra layer of something that would be an issue for players to have to deal with in a survival in a versus match as opposed to a survivor match like what I'm doing, where it's just playing against your own zombies. Okay, I know it's my graphical issue, but I kind of like the bloats with capes. It's just kind of goofy. So yeah, there's a couple like long dark hallways and creepy corridors, but the focus of the map is still you're gonna fight a bunch of zombies in this ice rink. It's goofy, it's silly, and I wanted to be sure that elements like lights, and like, yes, I could make a map and make it relatively easily with players have to carefully manage their flashlights. There's not enough light to do anything interesting, not do anything interesting, but there's not enough. There's inherent lighting not issues. I can't think of the words to use. There's inherent lighting problems and situations that need to be taken care with careful management of flashlight and other resources. And that's just not as fun to me. I wanted, like, it's like I have this big goofy map. I want to make sure that players can navigate it kind of as they choose. And yes, there's going to be a consequence for actions with destructible environments, with explosive lighting. If some demo is okay, clot. Yeah, there we go. If some demo is going crazy with their RPG, there's going to be an issue with that. But that's not the focus of the map. The focus is still kind of having this fun, engaging gameplay, and in a goofy, in a strange environment. Maybe strange is not the right word, but a twisted environment. Um, and there are a lot of elements like the cartoonish part, not cartoonish, but the kind of like, oh yeah, that's a pile of burning body bags. That's kind of dark, and that's just because, well, it's a zombie apocalypse story. Um, you kind of need those elements because just the rest of the theming, and it helps lend to the story of the map being this. You crash in with this bus, um, on this flaming bus that crashes in to this Horizon-sponsored arena because, of course, Horizon would be, no, we're totally good company. We bought a hockey rink in France. Look, we're for the community. And it's dark. It has angular corridors. It's not a happy place to move through. And it's kind of cheap, but also very manufactured. And then you have zombies attack it because it says Horizon on the cover. Yeah, so that was kind of like the tone I was going for. It was like, then this arena turns into this like relief center, so that's where those pallets of relief supplies come in. But then, one moment. Sorry. Uh, but it comes back to the gameplay of the level needs to be interesting, but and then still have a story behind it. So it's like this arena turned relief center turned zombie filled place. And that's kind of what I was going for with it. But it's a goofy story, but it's still one that's told through the map, and I wanted to make sure that the rest of the map kind of supported that, but still had interesting gameplay through it. So just gonna go through, and that's pretty much most of it. I'll go over a couple more asset changes as I move through. Like there's more cover here, more rubble to signpost the flames above. There's fire on both sides. It's only on both sides because it's only on the top and bottom because I want to make sure that characters can. I'm just filled with graphical glitches today. That's irritating. The fire is only on two sides, so that in versus mode it wouldn't be confusing for the zombie players, because otherwise they would be like, oh god, there's fire, we're going to take damage moving through there. They don't, but I want to make sure that they had a way that even the ones who don't realize that can still go, okay, I can walk through these sides and be safe. How many zombies I got left? 17? Okay. Next up are the stairwells. They've been made wider. This was a thing one of the guys in the lab was critiquing my stairwells for being too narrow, because zombies were getting hung up on them, there were other issues, and I had the space to make them double wide, so I did. And they're wider, they're more fun to move through, there's more juking space. I compensated by making them more worse lit. But bigger zombies can now move through the space easier. Bosses can move through. One of my playtesters who had a cheesy strategy of ducking in and out the stairwell so the boss couldn't chase him can't do that anymore. So he was like, it's better, but he was annoyed that he couldn't goof around like that. There's still places the player can like jump through, not necessarily secrets to find, but a little extra route so they can path down there, sneak in. My model might be too big. Yeah. But like they can go, oh, what's up here? And oh, that's where the spiders are spawning. So there'll be some spider spawns. There's a couple places where players can move through if they know the map a little bit better. A couple extra hidden routes and tricks. So nothing that's gonna like make the game. Okay, yeah, there's like no consistency with what's happening between like different sized zombies that are having graphical issues, or it's only those two scrakes and bloats. Uh, it's gonna be really funny if I get the patriarch and he's doing all that crazy graphical glitches. I will be. It'll be by way of 7, so I wouldn't redo the video at that point because I'm a professional. But I would be horrified, but also laughing like crazy because that would just be so silly to see. So I kind of have fingers crossed for graphical glitch in my demo of my map. I am, it's the end of finals week. Uh, one thing I'm also proud of is I made these ramps because before there were ramps going up, but they made no thematic sense. Why would the stands have, at the very least, like extendable things to go to the ice rink? That doesn't make any sense. Like, this is in Europe. People know what happens when people go crazy over soccer. Why would you make it more easier for the fans to get into the stadium? So I changed those. I'm gonna go run over and explain those in a bit. I'm gonna goof around with the chainsaw. Before I move over there, this room also went through a big overhaul because before it really had no purpose. It was just a room with a trader, and so now it's like, oh, it's another type of waiting room. There's vending machines. You can put some pallets in here so players can kite through it a little bit easier. That room now has a purpose, whereas before it didn't. There's still a little trash room. I moved these so you can't see the graphical glitches on the trash cans. But no, I want to show off this before the zombies show up. I got time. So the sorry, my render was complaining at me. I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's fine now. But these ramps, so there's a little bit of rubble. You pile it up, put some barricades on top, and you have a ramp to make it easier for people to move through that would be stuck here. And it kind of backfires because it makes it easier for zombies to move through, and that's something that you wouldn't notice when you're building a ramp. It's like, what in the case of a zombie outbreak, what happens? I killed him before the glitch hit him. So it was just one of those things that probably contribute to the fact that this place was destroyed relatively quickly. But also, it was already in rubble, so why not use it? And so I was able to tell, not necessarily a full story with that ramp, just make it a little bit more thematically consistent. It crouched there, and I don't know why. But I believe I mentioned before the signposting with the rubble, and using that. The tents are here. You can't navigate through those. That's just part of those mesh. But those help tell their story as well. This lounge area, stuff would have been moved out or destroyed. This rubble, it's like, no, you just pile it up because you have to put it somewhere, so we might as well put it here and have these sandbags, and so people can feel safer because their back's up to a wall. And then the zombies attack and your back's up to a wall. And it turns out that's not exactly what you want to have happen. This will be interesting because I did not have the right gun to deal with these guys. I'm going to be really sad if I die here. Really? You had to jump there? Yeah. This does want me to show off the physics. The non-entirely glitched physics of the chainsaw, of the eviscerator, and it's just firing with chainsaws. Oh crap. And how they bounce around. They're going to be more useful in other parts of the map. A big thing, and another thing I got comments on, was that there are longer sight lines on the map. And that's because that was intentional, and that's because other maps have sight lines that go on. Other maps have shorter sight lines. So if you want to play a map with super short compressed sight lines, you can play that. And I can't really compete with what they put out with just a crappy loader, with my own loader set. So I wanted to have something different. So I have these longer sight lines, but that also makes certain enemies harder, bosses are a little bit more difficult because they have their own guns. Um, they're certainly doable, and we've getting managed to take them down a couple times. But not only will the buffs bust the bosses from the latest patch make them harder, the map also, like, bosses are just, they're going to be more difficult. Um, and that's intentional because it's more fun, um, at least to me, because it didn't change any of the mechanics. They're still the same boss. It's just now they're a little bit more of a threat because, oh, it's a little bit harder to kite them. How do you move through? How do you trick them out? And how do you kind of fight back against the boss who can now shoot just as well as you usually can when you're trying to exploit one of the pre-existing maps. So that became the big thing. And then I guess that's pretty much everything with the map. I made the stairs pulse with light. It's a slow pulse, so it's not distracting. That was kind of my attitude with most of the lighting changes, was how to make it effective but not distracting. And I feel like I did most of that. There's a couple lights that flicker and change, just to make it seem more decrepit, more creepy, without being, again, creepy is kind of the wrong word, but just to make it more dynamic. Do this. And just kind of add in those elements, make those elements stand out more, and still guide the player with things like these pulsing lights, putting in other things to not glitch through, but to kite enemies through, to add in those little elements that can really make a map more interesting to play than just a shooting gallery. So yeah, while the geometry of the level hasn't changed a lot from the first iterations, I took a lot of strides to make it more cohesive, more of a story throughout the environment. I'm actually going to try and be careful with what I kill, so I can talk about the last little bit, because apparently I actually did have tons of stuff to say. Okay. So yeah, that was kind of the last. Just to make sure that my entire design process was, because I started with a geometry base and I made sort of play tested that base to make sure I had a good thing to run through, and then I had a good bottom floor. Okay, and so I then put in the top floor, and got feedback was like, no, you've got a really cool top floor. Okay, let's put hazards in it so players can run through it easily, players can move through, players know where they're going. How do I get things in their way? Okay, well, we have this rubble, we have these rocks, we have these props, let's put those in there. And then how do I make, and so that was just basic, it was just basic props, and yeah, it would be a while. So that was just basic props, basic elements. How do I, yeah. Excuse me. And then it was, how do I make that thematic? Okay, and then that's where the entire second half, the story of the map came from, it turning into like this refugee area, was because that's more interesting, and that let me use more interesting props. And so that was just kind of how the design went. Moving forward, the next thing, because as I mentioned before, like, this is an iteration, I wasn't saying this is final. Shouldn't follow. The big thing, like, the gameplay's there, the map's there, the props are where I want. What's the last thing in Killing Floor? Oh, the gold. That's why I've been playing Berserker, to show off all of that. The gold tiles, because there are tiles. That's how I made the map. I've complained about the static mesh set. You can see it more visible on older iterations. And now that it has texture, there's still tile. How can I fix that? I can use the way I'm supposed to fix it is select them all, combine mesh, and essentially make a big static mesh out of it, so just one big ass prop. I think that might have been the first time I've actually showed one of these videos. I apologize. But make it one huge prop. Except Then I was getting issues where I kill a zombie and this blood would be here and also tiled onto every other tile on the map. And also there's the inherent issue of not everyone has the static mesh. So when I load it up for another player, they wouldn't have the mesh, which means they don't have a way to interact with it, which means the game doesn't have a way of interacting with it, which means it doesn't render, which really defeats the point. I think I glitched him out enough that he won't know how to get to me, so I'll be able to talk for a little bit more. And that's the big change, and that's the big thing I can do moving forward, is try and figure out, and that's what I tried to do this week, and I ended up losing about 8 hours of work because of it, because I thought I knew what I was doing and I didn't. And that's the fact that I don't know how to get the static mesh to work, I don't know how to get the packages to work, and I didn't have enough time to learn, because I didn't think it would be a big issue. I underestimated the issue, and that's kind of been the main problem with this. And the main thing I learned was to make sure, moving into future projects, while it's fun to open up a new editor and go kind of crazy with it, and just, rather than worry about how I'm confined, worry about what I can, and just start going and see what I can make and see how it can develop. That attitude, while it really helped me learn a lot about the map and how I design things and how to design things, it didn't help me learn how to publish the map. Because rather than sit down and go through all the tutorials, like, I'm going to make a one room and I'm going to post that one room on the Steam Workshop, and look, it has all this gorgeous static meshing, I went for this environment. And if I had done one room, it would, like, an iterated through, it would have been much easier. I went big, and I'm having to go home. So the issue is that, yeah, he has no idea where I am. That's nice. Oh, he does. Nice part about being a berserker for testing is I can just jump off walls whenever I dang well please. So that's been the thing, is I like this map. I'm proud of what I made, and the current build I'm playing right now is actually hosted on the Steam Workshop. It's currently friends or family only, because I want to see if I can get the rest of it working over the coming weeks, to put just that final layer of polish on it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to I'm not sure how fundamental the issues are. And if it's one of those, because like I saw things like, well, just you have to go through and move the textures that you're going to use to your new package, and then you send out the package. And it's like, okay, how do you do that? You make your textures, move those over, which goes into asset creation, and then you have to move those textures, and for every thing that references that texture, you have to make a new texture. You have to change its texture out. There. Players won't get stuck on the map. They just have to take damage. It's like you have to go through a new texture. Okay, that's great. Except when I don't want to select every one of these for the fourth time, because I had to do that to get shadows to work. And so the shadows to stop going through walls. So yeah, there are a lot of things I learned with my workflow, and just the fact that using an editor like this, I really should have paid more attention to how to package up at the start, when my primary concern at the beginning was, how do I make something cool and fun to play? And I didn't really care what that meant later, and that kind of bit me in the back when it was, yeah, those mistakes you made, those choices you made at the start, those aren't going to make it any easier. Also, there's rubble in the cracks now to make it a little bit cleaner. That's not going to make it more interesting, more fun to play. And that was kind of the thing that was disappointing to me, was the splatter map, adding in the blood to stop tiling, doesn't really add a whole lot to gameplay, just makes it more graphically cohesive. So I was spending a lot of time not improving the gameplay of the level, and instead improving one aspect of the texturing. That wasn't really satisfying for me, and so I was getting frustrated, I was getting angry, and with the deadline coming up, I wanted to make sure that I had the rest of it in place. And yeah, it was just a matter of, I underestimated what that would entail. So that's the only reason, the only last thing that I really want to move forward on is, and I'm going to try and figure out over the next coming weeks, is how to fix the tiling. And if I can't fix it, I have this build on Steam Workshop and I'll just make it public. Because right now it's only downloadable to friends. But if I can fix it, I want to be sure that the build I present first is the best build I can. So that's been the big thing, and why I'm still saying this is an iteration. And I guess that's the closest I have to a post-mortem. So I'm just going to kill this guy and then move on to the boss round, because I've pretty much run out of things to say. I've talked about my design process. I've talked about every step of the design process with the various videos. I've talked about the other stuff, so I don't know, maybe in a week come out with an extra post-mortem video or whatever, with have the proper build on Steam Workshop. But we'll see what happens. This is the final that I'm presenting to. I'm probably going to die on this round because it's a boss round, and I don't have exactly a good kit against bosses. But yeah, I'm happy with where this is as a class project. I'm happy with how it is. It just the blood not going across this line. I've spent at least 12, 14 hours on and haven't gotten to go across that line and still be able to post it to the Steam Workshop and have other people play and have other people interact with it. And that's been the big issue. And so eventually, yesterday I focused. I made sure I spent like all of Wednesday working on this, and then yesterday I was just like, okay, no, we're gonna go the shift to make sure that that's fun to play, it's fun to move in, and that anyone can download it and play it. And that's where I am now. Any of my friends can download it and play it, and if I can't figure out how to make everyone download and play it with the fancy map and with the fancy blood splatter, then tough, pretty much. So yeah, that's been my level. This is against the boss. We'll see if I beat him. Hopefully I do. I'm curious. Yeah, his model is not glitching either. So I'm not sure what's up with the bloats and scrakes. That's, I guess, another post-mortem thing to go, or not even post-mortem. That's another thing I'll pay attention to. It's probably just my files, because I've gone through like 6 iterations of files with the static mesh and downloading, re-downloading, messing around, changing things. And I probably made some mistakes to my file structure in a sleep prepared taste. But I'm happy with where it is. I'm happy with how it is. I had people who never played Killing Floor played and still had fun. One of them actually is like funny. The first time he was like, "Yeah, I can't tell you whether or not the map was fun because the game's really fun." And then when he played it again, he's like, "Yeah, I can't judge it based off of other maps because again, I've never played the game, but I can." He told me, he was like, "I can tell you that it was fun. It was interesting to navigate through, and it didn't get in my way." It didn't get in my way a lot, while still getting in my way when it needed to. And that's pretty much like the best response I could hope for. The best kind of, pretty much what I was going for is I just wanted a fun, kind of not lighthearted, but a fun map to play, a fun map to move around in. I evidently overscoped a little bit more and that I didn't pay enough attention to what I needed to. But I'm still happy with it. I'm still happy with how it is. And if the big problem is that, oh no, if the biggest complaint I have walking away from this project is I didn't get a blood splatter to work right, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So yeah, that has been my Killing Floor 2 level, KF Arena. It might be on the Steam Workshop as KF, right now it's KF Arena tiled because I came up with separate builds to try and keep it consistent and not lose 6 hours of work a second time. But maybe it'll be up on the Steam Workshop as KF Arena in the coming weeks, with an explanation saying, "Oh man, look at this, look how cool it is," and maybe it'll come up in a couple weeks with an explanation that's, "Yeah, I know there's this issue, I don't know how to fix it. If anyone wants to help me, or if anyone has suggestions, please tell me. Otherwise, it's still fully playable besides this one blood splatter issue." So yeah, that's been my level, and there's a nice dramatic ending to it. The boss is beatable, and he is spawnable, and he moves through it fine. So, that is everything. Yeah. And Yeah, I was waiting for it to cut. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of the level and this now playlist of my design of it.